I have a huge issue with it. I'm going to go ahead and try and make this a real AIA. Me, Kenny Schultz, founder of PermZip, has a problem with you and your standard contract and the fact that you're promoting ridiculous underwriting practices in this industry. It's not. All right, this is season 2, episode 4 with Matt Savinsky. We are here in Lighting Environment Space.
Real life air horns.
PermZip. I am Kenny with co-host Carter Huddleston. We are trying to make engineering accessible to the light commercial market. Check out our website. We got an instant quote where you can get pricing in seconds. It's pretty cool. Today we are going to be talking about design with none other than Matt Savinsky himself, legend of Richmond, builder of great things.
One of the few guests you've had that knows nothing about design himself.
Yeah,
so
that's why we brought you
no
in.
actual design skill. So I am the foremost authority
Yeah,
to speak on such things. Yes.
exactly. We are here to reprimand you.
Oh, dear. a decade of transgressions
Yeah.
against the discipline. Yeah.
We're here in the mighty Lighting Environment Space.
Yeah. Shout out to Lighting Environments. Thanks to them to let us host this. They're great guys. I do a lot of work with them. They rep 90 or so different product lines, anything from high-end boutique pendants to cheap lay-in fixtures and everything in between.
It's funny, we were here. Like, they put their schedule on the first or last drawing, and I don't even know what that means or why that might be frustrating, but I certainly want to get them on the podcast to ask them, because one thing's for sure is that engineers annoy everybody.
Well, if everyone you run into hates you, it might be a you problem.
No, I don't think so.
You might
I think
need
it's
to look,
everybody else.
I think you need to look inward, Ken.
No, see, my thing is it's everybody else's problem, right?
Yeah, I'm perfect, right?
Yeah. So engineers are cool. No, we know we are really hard to work with, a necessary evil, frustrating thing in the market. And that's part of the podcast, is to prove to everybody we're actually very cool and you were wrong.
All right, that's it for this episode.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Well, that was insightful.
Yeah, and that's the end of the episode. But yeah, we've been through it, and we've learned a lot about everybody's perspective, and obviously advocating for ourselves in the industry, but trying to learn really genuinely what are those frustrations. And each season is we choose a single word motif. Last time it was coordination, and what it means to everybody this time it's design. And those words seem harmless at first, but when you start to understand what people think you do versus what you actually do, it's like those meme, what my parents think I do, what I think I do, all that.
Yeah.
I joke with my wife, like, I don't think my kids realize what I do. Like, oh, he's in construction. Like, I could very well just be a ditch digger, out there with a shovel. Like, they don't know any different. Like,
mine think I'm a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Because
aspiring, yeah.
Yeah,
You're getting there. You technically are.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a channel.
We have 170 subscribers.
Nice.
You and your mom and your mom's friends all watch the videos every week.
Yep.
Yeah.
They came over from the Frogcast on Facebook.
It's gaining traction, man.
Yeah. But so, design is weird. And for us, it's a lot of what we do in the light commercial. I can't speak for all engineers, but there's not a lot of money to pay us. So there's not a lot of time we could put into each project.
Yeah.
But there are still these high expectations of something being done the right way, or where the lighting fixture schedule sheet should be located, or whatever. And we're just trying to figure out what's the most valuable thing to actually include, but also give everybody else an opportunity to say what they believe it should be and what they actually contribute in design. And one example is we were talking to Jarnell last time, and he was talking about how he put together that Chef Suite deal, the underwriting, the partnership, and everything. And I'm like, see, that's design. I mean, you're thinking creatively about how to get the thing to move forward with partners. You have to think about how the money will be put together and all that. And so anyway, from a GC's perspective, I mean, I guess you can start with the MEP engineers. What makes a bad design?
One that doesn't work, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I look at just design, at a 30,000 foot level. Like, I think we're all spokes on a wheel of the deal making wheel,
Mm-hmm.
and usually as the general contractor, I'm kind of the center hubcap of that. So,
yeah,
a lot of times we're put in a position where, the client will come to us, whether that's a landlord or a tenant rep or the tenant themselves saying like, hey, I have this vision, I have this building, this is what I want to achieve. Get me there.
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to take? What do I have to do to this building? Figure out the code requirements, the engineering, all that stuff. So, it's up to me to kind of be the point guard and go reach out to friends in the market, friends like yourselves. And it's like, hey, let's go walk this building. Let's figure out what we need to do. What do the existing conditions look like? What, we're converting from a light industrial open garage to a restaurant or whatever it may be. Just like, what is the ethos of what we're trying to achieve? So, you're a critical piece to that, but I think we all are. If any one of us isn't doing our job, the deal's it's never going to come to fruition, right? It's going to fall apart. So,
One of the most important things you just said there was, "I'm your friend."
absolutely, yeah.
So I want
And
my
that's just
mom.
being recorded.
This is for my mom. I do have friends.
See, Mom, not everybody hates me.
Yeah.
Well, here I wanted to touch on the Kenny Schultz origin story.
Oh yeah.
Because I think I've known you for like 10 years now.
Yeah.
It's been about a decade.
Yeah. That's true.
So the first time I met Kenny, it was through our friend Cheryl Shanahan, the legend.
Yeah, legendary Cheryl.
The artist,
Mm-hmm.
the contractor formerly known as an artist. So she called me up and was like, "Hey, I got this guy. He's a piano player. I want you to meet him." I said, "Say no more. I'm in." She's like, "Well, he's not a piano player anymore. He's starting this MEP engineering firm, Permit Sib. Actually, you went by ArcEngine back then.
Yeah.
So, and like he's the whole 2 weeks, speed to market, this whole thing. Do you want to meet him?" I was like, "Well, he must not be a very good musician." So,
Yeah.
but I was more
Sounds like
interested.
that didn't work out.
I was more interested in that, but sure, bring him in. And I remember, you coming in, you gave us your pitch, and I think you left that day like with an order in hand. We were doing like a little 2-story medical office building,
Mm-hmm.
and you left with that order. And so I like to think that I'm kind of the villain origin story. Like I helped. Historians will recount
Mm-hmm.
that we helped create Permit Sib.
Yes,
So,
exactly. So
yeah.
all of the good that came from this is all thanks to you.
And all of the bad, apparently.
Yeah.
All of the people that now hate you,
Yeah,
allegedly.
Exactly.
Allegedly. It's my fault. Yeah.
You brought this curse.
Apologies
to
to the Richmond market.
Yeah.
I knew not what I did. I was a much younger man.
It was
much
an
thinner
apple.
man.
I was a serpent. A serpent that told me to take a bite of this apple, and I couldn't resist. Yeah, we were selling it was ArcEngine back then. Yep.
Yeah.
And we were selling the 2 week so it's free thing, which we still kind of offer as a product, but not everybody even really values it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially we realize that a lot of people just want the coordination design, and then we had a really big identity crisis. Like, wait, what do we do with that? So we can offer that product for people and just charge a premium for it. But what we're now focusing on is the light commercial, because there's a lack of supply of engineers that really ever want to do that. And so the idea is to scale that. And stay committed to it.
Yeah, everybody wants to do the big, sexy, ground up towers and large scale TIs, multi-floor stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really what we're into. I'm in the same ecosystem that you are, doing, small, but a couple $1 million.
It's a good size.
Yeah, no, it's like
Just decent.
speed to market.
Yeah.
$500,000 to $3 million, kind of like nice, quick hitting.
Yeah.
TIs, light commercial, light industrial, that sort of thing. It's just, I think that's the atmosphere I enjoy the most, just because you get to touch so many different projects because they are so fast to market. And I think those who can operate quickly and, assist those clients in speed to market and act in a design build or design assist capacity, I think they really separate themselves. I think.
Yeah, design build and design assist in that market's, I think, essential. I asked a lot of people what their favorite is, and the answer is always it depends. But I think in that market, it's the best way to approach it. I don't like bid stuff in this market because nobody has the money to pay us to give you what you might need in a drawing set. It just pisses everybody off. Like, well, we have to delegate coordination, all types of stuff, because if you're not going to pay me to do it, I'm sure as hell not going to do it. And then I'll say all of these specs that you in your trades have to run down and mess with. And so they'll be like, they didn't design it.
Yeah.
And that's the design question. It's like, well, sure, I didn't design that part of the detail of how the duct might run, but I also wasn't paid to do that. And so what do you want me to do? And then it ends up being, I'm a devil no matter which way I turn.
Yeah.
And so part of it is going through that with people.
Yeah. No, in a design bid build scenario, like I have to come to it in a knives out, I'm ready to fight. I'm in a hard bid. It's cutthroat. I've got to be the low number. It doesn't matter what my reputation is or how well I know the customer. Like all that's great. Like all that and the low number will win me the job every single time.
Right.
But you got to be the low guy. So it stinks, but I have to, we bid what's on the docks, right? Like I might see something myself, or I might, a trade partner might bring something up to me like, hey, that thing isn't sized right. I really think you need a new VAV box over in that conference room. It's not shown. Like it might come up in the pre-bid process, but it's like, I can't include the cost for that. I'm going to sink myself. I'm going to put myself out in left field. So, I feel like we at ML Bell, we try to be a little more collaborative. Like, hey, here's a handful of things. Like, I'm going to give you an a la carte menu, Mr. Customer, Mrs.
Mhm.
Customer. They're like, these aren't necessarily shown on your docs, but I'm almost certain you're going to need this
Mhm.
functionality to make your space function in the way that I know it needs to. But my competitors likely aren't looking at it like this. And
Mhm.
just go ask them these questions. And I bet once you add these values to their bid, I bet we're going to level out real quick. So,
Mhm.
you know, it can be an added service. It can be just a differentiator. Just like, hey, look, like we do have your best interests at heart. Like, I want to do a good job for you. I want to build a good building that fits your program, and you have a competent business that you're proud of, and that we're proud to put on our website and be shown as your partner. And just it's hard to do that in a hard bid, cutthroat environment times.
We're trying to make this more also content for developers that would be listening and understanding what's behind the scenes. I just find it weird that they will do all their planning, underwriting, risk adjusted decision making, and
Yeah,
contingency planning, and then really don't understand what's happening at the decider level or the installer level and design level, and they
yeah,
just see it as a number. Well, if you're going to be not having a budget for design, all of what we just talked about, then don't expect the bids to come in accurately, because your
yeah,
designers aren't going to put in but so much effort into your design, and now your bids are going to be everywhere. And if
Mhm.
you're making them go through a hard bid process on those drawings, you're just asking for a train wreck. I mean, you're going to choose the low bid and they're going to change order
yeah,
the hell out of it, and then you're going to
Yeah.
point to your engineer and say, "Why'd you fuck this up?" And I'll say, "I didn't. I deliberately didn't do these things, like I told you I wouldn't do these things, and now it's a problem. Like I tried to tell you it would
yeah.
be a problem."
Getting amnesia about it.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
forget when they
Mhm.
say all I want is a permit set, that
Yeah,
literally means you're just going to get a permit.
Yeah.
It
yeah,
doesn't guarantee it's going to work or be built. It's a permit. Like somebody's going to have to figure out all the details that weren't thought about during a permit
yeah,
set. So that amnesia that Carter brought up is like what we see. And I guess it's be careful what you ask for. When people say that to us now, we're like, are you sure you understand what you're asking for when you say you just want a permit set?
Mhm.
yeah.
It sounds like what you're saying is you want something really cheap, but you're still expecting the services that are included in like a full CD set.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you just want a fast speed to market set that you can go send to 3 to 5 GCs and hard bid it out, and you're just going to scroll to the bottom of the page and look like, what's the lowest number? That's my
Uh-huh.
winner. That's my horse.
Uh-huh.
You're just begging for trouble. And I don't know how you resolve that in the small commercial market.
Hmm.
Um,
I think hard bids need to just not ever be considered as an option for that.
More like
It-
design assist. If it can't be
yeah.
design build, then at least design assist. Throw
Yeah.
a couple grand in there to get you guys out early, like you talked about
yeah,
earlier.
no, and we try to gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
We work really hard, like on the business development route. Like let's get in front of these property owners, these land users, these local EDA departments. Like let's get to the clients on the front end when they're
Mhm.
just starting their investigatory process and looking at different sites and seeing what it'll take to make their dream come true.
What we found is if it goes to bid, the relationship between engineer and contractor starts on the wrong foot,
Mhm.
Yeah,
because they'll go to bid
it's
and
immediately an adversarial
exactly.
relationship.
And
Yeah,
suddenly the only time I hear from that contractor is because
yeah. I'm putting an octagon against you.
yeah,
Like, "Huh, here's the 12 things he missed on his set.
yeah,
Wasn't on the set. I ain't got it.
yeah,
Change order. Boom, boom, boom.
yep,
Yeah, it's like, okay. Like, I don't want to fight that guy
yeah,
and expose him and call him out for all these,
hmm,
because I understand, like, you weren't paid this lofty design fee to like go do a laser scan and BIM, full BIM coordinated set. Like, I get it. Like, I
hmm,
only wanted to give you 10 grand to just crank out a quick set. And
Mhm.
yeah,
like, what can you expect? And
yeah. That those expectations, and then everybody on your side, the trade contractors, have an expectation of something that they can bid from. Like the frustrations we heard here, those are valid frustrations, but they don't have control over what the scope was for the engineer
yeah.
to have created that document. And it's definitely, if you're in the light commercial market, there is almost, if you're in the light commercial market, it's annoying that any dollars are having to be paid on an engineer. Like,
Yeah.
period. Most people are like, damn it. Like, that's 10 grand I could have not spent. And
Yeah.
then it becomes expensive also because your engineer is obliged by law to do things like size it correctly.
Yeah.
Like ventilation that
Yeah.
leads to tonnages that don't match everybody's, for whatever reason, 350 square foot per ton number that they just magically
Yeah.
think works for everything. And then we show up and then we get the accusation that we've over engineered and stuff. And so it's a difficult market to be in.
Yeah.
We want to be here because we think we can solve those problems and scale it for developers that have the portfolio with these small projects. Even if you own $1 billion in real estate, you're going to have tenants. They're always going to be coming and going. You're going to need somebody that has figured out how to do the engineering right, and that's what we're after at Permitan.
Mhm. Yeah, it's tough. We get the chance to walk a lot of, like, quick hitting commercial TIs. You know, you go into Innsbruck and old tenant moved out, new tenants coming in, just light renovation, paint and powder, finishes, just get them in here. You know, then you get into it and you start talking directly to the tenants. Like, you know what, this really doesn't fit my program. I need a waiting area. I need a lobby. I need more offices. I need to repartition the space. I need this. I need that. It's like, okay, well, now we're talking about like doing new walls to the deck for sound considerations. And now I'm piercing there's ductwork in the way. And I really need a new VAV box for that conference room, or else it's going to be an oven in there when you got 12 employees. And it's like, you start to peel that banana and it's like, yeah, it becomes more costly, but like, what's more costly? Figuring out day one and, you know, potentially losing the deal, which I lose a lot because like I think too much about it, or you give them the paint and powder zest, and then 90 days later they're in the space and they're miserable. And they're calling you every day. Like, my AC doesn't work. All my people are miserable. It's like, well, you know, you kind of set this up. So.
And we're the problem is, especially HVAC, is it requires a certain finesse and a people skill that isn't something that's baked into every engineer or any engineer really. And like I was,
are you implying you're lacking in people skills?
Yes.
Yeah, we may not have.
You guys are
skills.
like Casanovas.
Yeah, right. We have just talked about it recently, where I was told I was mansplaining this person who was asking me. Well, we had specified a 15-ton DOAS, and so their value engineering. That's a bad word for HVAC.
That's a dad word.
That's a dad word. It's the feature reductions they proposed.
How do you VE a DOAS? You say, oh, we have operable windows.
Yeah, well,
delete it.
That one we tried. We couldn't do that. It was makeup air for the hood and very limited space, and they couldn't do natural ventilation. All these constraints, and it led to a DOAS 15 tons. And so their option was to do just a fan with, like, can we just replace it with just a fan makeup air? And I'm like, no, you can't. Like, and the contractor legitimately was proposing it as if it was over-engineered, and that the solution was to buy a fan with no treatment of the air to bring into that building.
Be fine.
Yeah.
Put a box fan in the window.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's not.
Crack the car window. You hot kid?
They try to say, well, we just need a solution that's cost effective, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, y'all don't understand what I always compare it. It's like, you're trying to tell me you want to be in an IndyCar race, but you got a budget to buy a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
And you want me to tell you a Honda Civic will win, and it just won't win.
Yeah.
You won't even come close to starting to be competitive. You'll never win a race. You'll always lose, and people wonder why the hell you did it. And then what's going to happen is then you're going to look at me and say, why'd you let me buy a Honda Civic?
Well, I think a lot of people are afraid to have that conversation, to be that candid with people, you know, like, you know, because it's hard. You know, it's hard to tell people things they don't want to hear, you know, because you don't want to lose the deal. You don't want to be supplemented and replaced. You want to look at their future projects. I get it. But I feel like one of my great strengths is like, I don't care. Like, I'll tell you the truth. Like, you know, I'm not going to get a job under false pretenses and tell you what you want to hear. And then day two, come to you with a list of problems. Like, oh, this wasn't on the set. Gotcha, buddy. You know, I'd rather lose the job every single time. And, you know, I work for people that support that vision, you know, and it's just, this is such a small town. And we all know each other in the commercial construction world. Like, almost every guest you've had on here, like, yeah, I know that guy. I know that lady. They're great. They're awesome. I've done work with them for the last decade. Like, word gets around, you know, like, oh, don't trust that number Savinsky gives you on day one. He's going to hammer you day two. Like, it's just not worth it. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. The industry's a little bit fucked. I know Mike has said it before to me that it's broken, and that was when we were talking in a situation where I was screaming, and he, you know, we weren't in the best place. But I do agree, it's kind of a trope, but it is, especially for like,
I'm sensing a common theme of you getting under people's skin, and being abrasive.
Well, you know, it's just because they don't understand.
They don't understand your brilliance.
They don't understand
you're an artist.
They don't,
your mental load.
They don't get it. Yeah.
And now that you're a social media dynamo, you know, the ego, you thought it was bad before.
You even know who I am?
I have 7 Twitter followers.
Okay.
Mike, do you know who you're speaking to?
I have dozens of views.
Yeah. You should see the at least 12 views I have on my. It's been a wild ride for us for sure, because, you know, we've taken our licks and made a few mistakes along the way, and we went into really where it started is 2013 for us, where the engineering just kind of internally just got so bad that I was tired of it. Told the team, just get the hell out of here if you're not going to take engineering seriously. This isn't the place where you hang out and wait for somebody to tell you what to do. I need you to be
Yeah.
proactive and care about the fact that when you put a fucking light switch in a piece of glass, that's going to be embarrassing.
Yeah.
And you should feel embarrassed about that and be connected with it. Don't say that it's because so and so told me this or that. Just like know that that's how it works.
Yeah.
So then,
I've been watching a lot of your episodes in preparation for this, and I forget which one it was, but you were talking about how like, you drew your set, you laid it out, and the contractor literally like, well, this is exactly where you showed that sanitary pipe. So that's where I sprayed a line on the floor, and that's where I cut my saw, and it was wrong.
Yeah.
How dare you? It's like,
yeah.
We as contractors, in my opinion, should be embarrassed by that. Like, do your job, you know, like go verify if you need to scope the line, you need a GPR,
which is in
whatever. Yeah, like don't be a moron,
Yeah,
like,
I always say
do a little bit of due diligence, and it's going to go a long way. The customer's going to see that, the design team's going to see that, and it's going to pay dividends for you.
I always get surprised when that happens, especially on bid projects. Like a contractor will do that kind of thing, whereas I would ask him in that situation, what if this was design build? Like,
right?
Would you literally just cut where you think something is and design build? Yeah. No, you would camera this stuff, and it's on our spec to do in the first place. People always say that, you've heard me maybe say it, but I can't stand when I'm told you did it per the drawings, because in this light commercial world, that means you did it per the one picture on the 9 pages of drawings. There are specifications that require that camera to go in the ground and all this. And people get mad at it because they'll feel, and I've been yelled at.
Oh, that's all boilerplate. We didn't read that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll just holler and scream like, well, that's not what I paid for, blah, blah. I'm like, it is what you paid for. Yeah. And it leads to conflict. And I really don't know how to get ahead of it other than trying my best to be as deliberately abrasive as possible, because I'd rather you be mad at me right now when I'm just telling you the truth and just say I'm a mansplainer and just say you don't want to work with me, than lie to you until you get to a point where it's going to cost you 10 times more. I just walk away. I don't want to work then with you in that case, because I think it's bad. We had one project where I killed the deal for them. Hear me out.
It's all your fault, Kenny.
But it was because they had unrealistic expectations of their construction budget. They were like, oh, we should be able to do this whole restaurant for 80 grand. That probably makes you wonder.
That'll buy your hood and your MAU.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much
couple bar stools. There you go. You're done.
Plant wall, gone.
Yeah. And they had already spent the soft costs on the architectural, everything. We were being brought in as MEP, and I was like, this is not going to happen. Die. And then they ended up not being able to do the project at all. But thank God, I'd rather not be paid to do engineering.
Yeah. For every deal that I'm able to pull out of the clay and shape and form and make happen, there's probably 4 or 5 that are like you're saying, that you have to just shoot it. Like, this is never going to go anywhere.
How often does that happen for you?
All the time.
GC? Yeah, like people come to you asking for pricing, and
several times a month.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, they'll come to me all sweaty and out of breath. Like, okay, I just signed a lease. I inherited some money, or I got an SBA loan. I got a little walking around change. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to build this restaurant or this cafe, this office, whatever it might be. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your budget? I'm like, whatever. I got a little bit of money. I've got 200 grand. And then they go proceeding to explain to me what sounds like a $2 million project. I'm like, buddy, you're knocking on the wrong door here. Like, it's like, I see it all the time. Like, smaller tenants will go sign a lease, and the landlord will offer them a tenant allowance, right? $30 or so a square foot is pretty customary for around here.
Okay.
And they think like, oh, the world's my oyster. I can get whatever I want for this money, baby. Yeah. Like, let's go hire an architect, draw me a gorgeous suite, and like, it comes up, design, bid, build, bids out, and it's $150 a foot kind of space.
Yeah.
And there's like, who did this to me? How did we get here? We need to bid it again and again and churn through the market. These pesky contractors, they're greedy. And like, no, you just have a gross misconception of what things cost. And
Chris said that. He was like, if it's coming to you after being bid 9 times, that's not a project.
Oh, yeah. And like, if that is the case, I'll always find out. Like, a sub will call me like, hey, dude, FYI, this thing's been bid like 8 times prior. You should probably not waste your time, Matt. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, friend plumber that I've known forever. Thanks for looking out for me.
Yeah, the relationships are so important in that situation, and trust.
Or if you've already bid a job and then like a few weeks later, like you'll catch wind it's getting rebid or someone's shopping numbers. Like, word always gets back, because again, it's a small town. It's like a big high school. We all know each other.
Yeah,
so
it is.
It always cracks me up when people try to do shiesty things like that. Just like, in the name of saving a few $1,000s, you know? It's like, like, I'm going to find out. Like, nothing is secret. So
it's a weird industry because trust is so important, but it's litigious. It's just crazy, you know. Like I've been telling people, we'll get into the details of exactly what happened, but we were sued for $500,000 or something we didn't even design, and
oof.
it's like, holy shit, man. And it ended up being fine in our favor. But I did invite those people into the
You
podcast.
just wrote a check for $500,000.
Yeah,
No big deal.
I mean, you know what? I should have $500,000.
Wipe my ass for that, but you know.
It's in my couch
Yeah,
cushions. Yeah.
I think I dropped $500,000 on my way in here.
I picked it up. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever, you can have it. I don't fucking care. It's like, you know, that's the nature of it. And so everybody's on their toes, especially if it's a hard bid, because you're put into that position to just, there's nothing you can do but blame the drawings in that situation. That's your only way to get
So
through
again,
that.
I feel like I try not to operate in this realm, but it happens all the time where it's design, bid, build. You get your 3 GC numbers. It's grossly over budget. You know, oh my gosh, this is double what we expected. What do we do?
Yeah.
And all the contractors are just like, I don't know. It's what you drew, pal.
Yeah.
Redraw it and I'll bid it again.
Yeah.
Don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You know, so like I try to operate on a level above that. Like I don't want to be playing in the mud with the pigs, you know, like, you know, we're a little smarter than that. Like here, yes, you're grossly over budget. Like if you're talking about 5-10%, something, you know, something attainable and within reach, like here's some calculated things we can do. We can look at the dirty word, the dirty
over-engineered it.
No, I mean,
just kidding.
and you know, trust is a big part of this.
Yeah.
Where you know, the architects and the engineers and folks I work with all the time, I think they know, like, no, I'm not just going to take a butcher knife and just start hacking off functionality and just you know, deleting all the beautiful things that you drew in the space. Like, no, like we can, you know, make conscious decisions with, you know, alternate flooring or lighting fixtures, or you can get the same form and feel, very similar anyhow, and get close. But like, you know, if it's beyond 10% or so, you've got to start cutting program. And you know, just the ability to like have smart people that want to work with you, that will give you those ideas. Like very rarely is it me coming up with them, but I have a team of 15, 20 companies behind me feeding me great intel. Like, here, Matt, look at this, look at that, propose this. So, you know, a lot of times I'll look like a superstar, but it's, you know, it's nothing. I'm nothing without my relationships. So, and I think that goes a long way in just the overall deal making world, that I don't think many people I compete with are willing to do that or able to do that. I don't know if it's a question of ability or wanting to, but I think we do that, and it, you know, it makes us very successful. So
that word program, you said it. Can you walk a listener what you mean by that when you say cut the program? Because that's huge. I think that input needs to change. And
you know, it's like, hey, you know, I'm XYZ accounting firm. I'm taking over 30,000 square feet in James Center, you know, whatever it is. I have 50 employees. You know, so I need this many workstations. I need this many private phone rooms, and for private calls, I need this many conference rooms. I need a cafe. I need a kitchen. I need this. I need that. You know, that's program, right?
Yeah.
That's like what the space is programmed to function under.
Yeah.
So again, hey, I just bid out your space. I'm double what the cash you have on hand, or the loan amount you had, or the tenant loan, whatever it is, whatever your financial constraints are. We can get you where you want to be if it's within a 5 to 10% range. Historically, that's what I found.
Yeah.
If it's beyond that, you've got to start cutting program. You've got to cut your limbs off. You know, it's like, you can't have all those conference rooms. I'm sorry. You can't have all that quartz and all those amazing light fixtures and all that exposed structure. Like you've got to start acquiescing on some of the pizzazz and the things that are really cool about your space.
That's huge. I've been trying to say rebrand. I don't know. I'm working on the branding, because value engineering I don't like. Then input engineering. Value reduction seemed a little negative, so I called
Feature
it
reduction.
Feature reduction. And then I went to input engineering, but program engineering is what we're talking about. Is the expectations of what you can do in this space. Like, you just can't afford basically half of this, so don't build it this big. Make it even just physically less. Just leave half of it unfinished if you need to. If you want to get open, do this. And I think that's where people need to have a better understanding of business and operations, engineers especially, because if you give us a problem to solve, we'll solve that problem. We won't think for a second whether we should or shouldn't.
But you rarely, if ever, see the cost, right?
Yeah,
you're just not
disconnected from that for sure.
You're on the front end, and your drawings are done, and see you later. We only hear from you if there's problems and RFIs and tweaks and that sort of thing, right? Yeah.
It's hard for an engineer to think that, you know what, the root cause of the problem might be is what they're asking. I had somebody at Urban Core called me and was like, hey, you know what, I got this thing going on. The engineer spec to DOAS because we added this thing, that, and whatever. I said, well, It was laundry because they had some commercial laundry they wanted to add to a building, and the engineer put a DOAS. I said if I was told that that was the requirement, I would have put a DOAS too. The problem isn't what the engineer selected; it's that do they need commercial laundry machines? Can they get away with residential because the
Yeah.
code is different
Sure.
on that, and can they still achieve what they need from a programming perspective with residential equipment? Because then that DOAS goes away. But an engineer would
Mhm.
generally not go there. They just
Yeah.
are less connected with thinking about
Yeah.
the operations. We're just given a problem to solve, and then we answer it. And
Sure.
then a DOAS shows up, and that's like in this market a 4-letter word. Like nobody wants to see DOAS on the spec.
DOAS is literally a 4-letter word. Yeah.
It's
I think
Oh, good job, Kenny.
see, I'm an engineer.
Well, I mean, the engineers I really enjoy dealing with have mastered both sides to where like they're abreast of all the local, code requirements and ever changing laws and NEC and all that kind of stuff. But they also take a reasonable approach. Like, no, you don't need feeders that size. We can spread that out or set a separate panel or like, they can look at it holistically and just like, hey, get me in touch with the electrician on your job. Let me talk to that guy. Let me bounce some ideas off him, and he'll tell me what the most cost effective approach is. So like, but again, you can so rarely do that on a design bid build. That's more design build, design assist, and it's just better for everybody. Yeah.
Hang on one sec.
That is, I'm starting to believe and have that conclusion that in the light commercial market, the best thing for it is design assist or design build. We like having somebody there at the table during design, like like general contractor, to tell us the things that we don't see. We just simply don't see them.
Yeah.
No matter how good an engineer is, we don't spend our life installing this stuff and thinking about it and procuring it and coordinating logistics of site. We are in a different plane of thought. And when that person is there with us at the design table, they can stop a lot of bad ideas before they even start.
Sure. And you have no idea like lead time of this manufacturer versus that one or cost or like you just don't know. So having the subcontractors and the GC on board that they can graciously tell you that and give you constant feedback like, hey, why don't you manufacturer X is running 24 weeks for that kind of unit these days. Why don't you call this guy? They're at 12 weeks. Like it's going to save on the schedule. The whole program's going to shrink and we can get the job done a month sooner and credit them back general conditions costs and superintendent fees and all that kind of stuff. So like there's so many things at play that, again, if it's design bid build, you don't get the luxury of accessing that whole suite of moves.
Yeah. I mean, I see design assist as having the engineer having access to the GC during that design phase, and design build as the GC having access to the engineer during the build, because there's a lot of things a GC will do that are just completely bad pricing decisions that they make early on when they're just given a number and like, ooh, you're going to need more HVAC than that.
Yeah.
And they've already given this promise, this expectation. So design build allows us to run a couple quick numbers before, things are going. And I'd like to explore that more for sure. Evans Construction, we were with them. They're great to work with. We've worked with Mike before. I personally, have to get him in front of me over a beer or something. And we've had our things, but that's just the way the industry is. You go through some good and you go through some bad. This is the whole motivation of this, is to learn from the bad things that we've done. But what are you, and where do you see design bid being beneficial in the industry at large? Just you've done a lot of different kinds of projects.
Yeah. It's beneficial if it's a very simple, quick job. Like, again, like we're not moving a lot of walls around, ceilings are staying in place, HVAC's kind of existing to remain. You might just be swapping like for like fixtures and doing some millwork and paint and flooring, that kind of stuff. Sure. Very simplistic. You can pay an architect and the engineering team within a 30-day window, typically, like, hey, just crank me out a permit set.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of functionality. You don't even need to go to the building. You don't have to figure anything out. It's straightforward, baby. Send it out to 3 GCs, smaller, less sophisticated guys. Boom, boom, boom. You're going to get the lowest number and they'll do a good job. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But anything that's like change of use, added occupancy, multi-tenant, multi-service, adding a ton of equipment, like if you hire the wrong people in the beginning, you're just hosed from there on out. So, and you're always going to be playing catch up, and just pointing fingers and, like you said before, like, why'd you draw it like this? Why didn't you tell me? And like, well, you didn't pay me to, man.
Yeah. Plus, you've been demoing it for like 3 weeks now, and now you can see all this stuff that I can't see.
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect me to be able to find out? Am I in the investigation? Adaptive reuse is is a nightmare for engineers in the light commercial. There's a
Yeah.
high expectation of
I
things.
don't know how you do that
Mhm.
hard bid. There's no way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it should.
it's all existing. It should be easier and cheaper, right?
No.
That's
Yeah.
what everybody says.
Oh man, yeah. We just want to reuse it. Uh, so it should be a cheap engineering fee, and people don't realize sometimes it costs the entire new build fee just to figure out if you can use it.
Yeah, it's like, hey
Yeah.
man, yeah, you bought this old tobacco warehouse and you want to make it apartments, but did you go in the Dungeness basement and you saw the
Yeah.
GE switchgear from like the British invasion era?
Yeah,
It's from the 60s. Like they don't make that anymore. They don't make breakers that fit that. You cannot, you literally can't reuse it. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you bullied the GC into giving you a low bid number according to that kind of, revise and reuse kind of scope, but it's just not going to work.
yeah,
And your budget's busted, dude. Your whole pro forma's off, and it might kill the deal. But like the earlier in the process you can discover that and convey it to them, like, the better you're all going to be. And even if the project dies, like so be it, man. That's so much better than getting 6 months down the road and then we're all suing each other.
You mentioned pro forma. That's a good thing. I think engineers should learn more about underwriting and planning in general. How often or how close does the GC get to being involved with understanding how the pro forma is built?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the deal. If it's design, bid, build, simple, like commercial, none at all, zero. I like to think I have a lot of good relationships in town with various like leasing agents and brokers and developers where like they won't necessarily tell me their number because they want me to come in under it, right? Like why would they? Or they might share a number and sandbag a little bit, what have you.
Yeah.
But I'll just tell them like, hey, this building needs a ton of structural work, or it's missing all these critical MEP systems. Like, how does this fit in your pro forma? If you just show them that you're trustworthy and that you have their best interests at heart, then that being like, I want this job to go forward. I want you to build this thing because I want to do the work. Usually people are, they'll lower their force field a little bit and let you in, and you're like, okay, I've only got X dollars per square foot to spend on the shell. Like, what can you get me for that? And it just depends on the guy and the relationship.
Stuart mentioned this. He said sometimes it's hard to get people from the GC it's hard to get people to tell you what their budget is. Is that true?
Oh yeah,
Because they'll spend it.
Yeah, because you'll
Almost
spend
never.
it. You're like, that's the point. Like,
right, yeah. If you tell me you have $1 million, like, oh, my bid's $998,000. Wow, incredible how that works.
Yeah, magic. But in other ways, it's the only way for you to understand how to consult with them if you know their limits. Because if they ask for something, then you can say, "Oh, that's not going to work in that."
So
budget.
I never asked for it day one, but there are clues and hints that make themselves very apparent very quickly, as far as like we've talked about, like, okay, the scope and the magnitude you're describing is kind of like a $3 million deal. But from the contextual clues you've given me about the tenant allowance you're getting, like, I'm pretty sure you only have give or take $500,000. Like, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So I try to get to that point very quickly in the process. And it's like, okay, all cards on the table. What do you have?
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? Because I think I'm not willing to put my reputation and my relationships on the line of like, hey, let me go call a bunch of architects and engineers and trade partners, and we're going to look at this job, and we're going to do all these budgets and jump through all these hoops and spend 6 months of front end discovery. And like, oh, just kidding. I only have $500,000. It's never going to happen. Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not willing to do that because it makes me look like a fool.
Yeah.
How
And
do
then
you-
the next opportunity that comes around, it's like the boy who cried wolf.
Mhm.
It's like every time I call you guys, like, Matt never closes a deal. This thing ain't going to happen. It's like,
yeah.
I take that very seriously. So I try to cut that off at the pass very early, like within days of meeting people. Like, hey, I've been doing this for 15, 16 years now. Like, I have a ton of historic data, a lot of experience. Like, I do this all day, every day. I sell construction. I figure out what it costs to do deals like you are pursuing right now.
Yeah.
So like, this is good data. I can get to an answer plus or minus 15% within an hour usually,
Yeah.
just based off like square footages and tonnages and
Yeah.
historic data and that kind of stuff. So I'll just shoot that to them. Like, hey, what you just described me and we just walked your building, this is about a $2.7 million deal. And here's why, based on these criteria.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they just throw up, like, well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought this was going to be $200,000, pal. Like, well, call someone else,
Yeah. Because
no harm, no foul. We're good. But
how do you? What are the biggest factors that will change the price per square foot when you're kind of like thinking about that?
the answer to any question you ever ask is, well, it depends.
Yeah.
Like what kind of building is
Been a
it?
common motif on the podcast too.
Yeah.
Change of use. You mentioned that can drive
Change of
things.
use, things that blow up your economy of scale. Like say you have a small little building that you've got to add an outboard elevator to, stuff like that. Or, a building that used to be an office building that wants to convert to a restaurant, and you need a giant captive air hood and a DOAS makeup air and all, stuff like
Shout out
that.
Captive Air.
Captive Air.
Thank you. It's a far reach for us.
You don't need the button anymore.
You got it.
But just things like that are outliers, that are atypical, to a building or a process. That just blows up your cost per square foot out of whack really quickly to where, and developers and leasing agents, they're smart. They have access to past history and historical data just like I do. Then they'll look at stuff like, you're at $300 a square foot. You're out of your mind. Like, well, I agree with you normally, but here's the 5 things that are really driving that are very atypical. Like, here's the tail of the tape. I'm not lying to you.
Yeah. In your market, like where MLBell, I would say we're similar markets, I think, right? Like light commercial, y'all do different stuff too. But for me, I can say HVAC, no matter really where I'm landing, is going to be somewhere around 150 square foot per ton to 550 square foot per ton. That's the range of like all the way from like a hospital needing a DOAS up to a house. Is there a dollar per square foot range that's like the cheapest project you ever done versus what does that look like?
Oh, you're asking for some proprietary information there, pal.
Yeah. Okay. $1 sign versus $3 signs.
Oh, you want my secret recipe, huh? Of these cookies? I don't think so, pal. But in all seriousness, I mean, that does get into certain proprietary information. Yeah, no, I don't want to just start shotgunning numbers all around.
Yeah, so
I'll do that with you offline after this.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, we'll definitely have no secret cameras on during that conversation.
What's that light on in your pocket?
No, nothing.
Sorry, everybody. I tried to get it, but the man himself won't divulge.
No, I mean there's high level conceptual estimating.
Yeah,
just like, hey, square footage of the entire building or total tonnage of these total structure. High level stuff that you can get plus or minus 30% real quickly.
Yeah.
Then there's slightly more granular, like line by line conceptual estimating. Where like, the electrical for a tenant fit out is normally X per square foot, but on a light industrial project, it's normally Y per square foot. And I can go through and do that for every trade.
Yeah.
Or I have plenty of friends that work at each discipline. That, I can call a millwork guy, I can call a concrete guy. Like, hey, what's the cost of tea to China these days? Help me conceptualize this. So.
It's crazy to me. So I know the topic is design. A lot of people think we're here to talk about MEP design, but really what I'm after is showing what kind of design goes in, and just from the GC's perspective, because what you're doing is designing. You're designing how to estimate. I mean, estimation itself is an art, and it's a design, and it requires you to know what a proforma is. And how somebody put the deal together and have a historical database and designing, like, who do I even call? Right? These are going to
like I would say, like, I'm not an expert in any one thing, but I have to be a jack of all trades. I've got to know a little bit about everybody's job.
Yeah,
and
jack of all trades.
Yeah, and I have to know who to call for 50 different services. So
experience and knowing who has the experience. What we've talked about is that's a study has shown that we've read that basically experience is one of the primary driving factors to risk. And so as a GC, having different varying people that I know he's done this before, restaurants is a good category. Like, you don't want to hire somebody. In fact, that is part of the problem for us.
This is my first pizza parlor.
That
How
happens
bad could
to be
it be?
the exact problem with a certain situation of a lawsuit is the person who built it had never done a restaurant ever. And we've done several of them. And we're like, dude, you just don't know what you're fucking doing.
Yeah. I mean, no, MLBell's done over 100 restaurants
so you've
over
seen
the years.
You know what it's
I think
like.
Mike's built a great reputation of, like, he's the restaurant guy in town. He's who you call. Yeah.
Yep.
So
absolutely. And it's good to have that, because then his trades also have that experience. They've done it. Josh Kreider, restaurants make him nervous, just because they do a lot of great commercial construction, but he won't take one on a design build aspect. He'll only do bid projects like that. In fact, he's building one of the bid projects that we did.
Yeah.
So designing out who to even reach out to. And you talk about, like, kind of pricing fatigue. You'd mentioned you might go through a process of pricing, and then the deal dies, and then it hurts your reputation, and then that person doesn't want to work with you next time.
Absolutely.
That's
one of my greatest concerns and fears. And, like, not burning people out, not annoying people. Like, when I call you, like, you're like, this deal's probably going to grow legs. Like Matt's
Mhm.
going to make sure it does,
Mhm.
and like the art of being a deal maker, it's one that I take very seriously. And I've worked very hard to develop this kind of broad skill set to where
Mhm.
like, I view, you talk about, design and coordination. How's that fit? Like, I think it's a critical cog in the deal making process
Oh, yeah.
because, like, yeah, Mr. Tenant, I just walked your space and you described me what you want to achieve, but like, I don't have the skill to like put that on paper. I don't. Like, I'm not an artist. I'm not a very conceptual space planning. I don't have that skill, but I know a lot of great, really talented firms in town that I can call.
Mhm.
And within a few days, like, here, man, here's a test fit. Here's what I think you could do with that space. I can then take that test fit, call around to all my subs, like, hey, help me conceptualize this. Let's put a high level number to it. And all this happens within a week, usually within a handful of days. Like, let me call in some favors. Let me get some good, smart men and women looking at this.
Mhm.
Let's see if we can make a deal happen. Because like, we all need to make money at the end
Mhm.
of the day. Like, we need revenue. We need projects to push forward. So, like, I love the, aesthetic nature of design, creating beautiful spaces and flow and all that. That's great. But like, I view it more as like an essential tool. Like, help me be sharp, help me make deals happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understanding the cost. So one thing I'm weak on, I don't understand is just generally finishes. I'm sure you're a lot more like we've asked what is usually value engineered on the table, and what I'm learning is that there's three main things: it's lighting, it's HVAC, and then finishes. Is that true, or is there other things that usually come off if it's not
Yeah.
programming itself that you're just changing or tweaking?
Yeah. Usually lighting packages, you can find alternate, guys like these guys that rep 90 different lines. Like, hey, find me something similar aesthetically, but,
Yeah.
lower price point. Finishes, flooring's kind of the same way.
Hmm.
Like, there's a lot of great manufacturers that create comparable products.
Hmm.
Like, let's open up the spec. Let's look at, who's hungry, who's got excess materials, who wants this job. Then it's like getting creative. Like, okay, maybe we can't do all glass fronts and pivot, Herculate, all glass doors and all this stuff. Like, I hate to do this to you, but maybe I give you like a hollow metal with a side light with a veneer door with a full view kit. And like that gets dangerously close to a hack job. Like, when I start going down that route, I'll
What does
call
that
it.
even mean? I didn't understand like 500 of the words
Yeah.
you just said. What?
Duct work,
Yeah, you said
Glass.
what was that?
rooftop unit.
What is that veneer kit stuff? What
Like,
did you just say?
well, you see your viewers can't see this, but like, they have a nice like 4.5-inch aluminum storefront system. So where like, okay, maybe you can't afford that. Maybe you get like a hollow metal system with a wooden door that has a full glass kit and it's cheaper. And
I
so
see.
that just comes with experience and like knowing the price point of things where I can make suggestions like that. I like to run that by the architect first before I just unilaterally start hacking at their spec. Like, hey, I
Yeah.
want to make sure you're cool with this. It's a similar aesthetic. It's not exactly the same, but it's going to save, $50,000. Like, I think this is
Yeah.
really going to move the needle for this customer, and it's really going to push this deal forward. So what do you say?
I don't know about architects. I can say for us or other engineers, I can only speak for permissive. But when it comes to spec, we do overspec when it's a bid for sure. A lot of people even
Yeah,
like you said, they're overspecking it, and the reason is because we don't know who the hell is going to be pricing this thing, and we need
yeah,
to be able to protect ourselves, and that's just
Mm.
as honest as it possibly can be. Just I don't know who you are that's pricing it. I don't have a relationship with you. It's a light commercial project
yeah.
with zero budget, barely had enough to spend, so I'm
And
going to spec the ever living hell out of this. So if
well,
anything goes
the
wrong,
the
it's
barrier to entry of firms that would be bidding that scale of work, it's pretty low.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
pretty much anyone in town can bid a small restaurant job.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I'm not putting that down. Or we build small restaurants. We love
Yeah.
small restaurants.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast.
Yep.
Like, you don't know who's on the other side, and you don't know who's going to misinterpret something on your drawing and modify your spec and buy the wrong unit because they just went to Home Depot and got something off the shelf. And it's like, what are you doing, man? And then your E&O insurance is at risk, and it's just a cascading effect of misery. No,
Mhm.
I get it.
Versus, starting off on with a Josh Kreider, for example. We like working with him. He's great.
Ben
Yeah.
Matthews.
Ben Matthews. If we start off with him and we go into it working together about making the spec lower, it's something we're willing to do as engineers because we know whose hands it's in
Yeah.
when it goes to construction and that they're looking at these critical things and getting ahead of them before they become problems. If it goes design bid, I mean, literally we'll have, I don't even, the contractors often we'll see residential contractors sitting there installing something on
Yeah.
a commercial thing, and they've
You got
never done
no
it
business
before.
being here, bud.
Yeah, they
You
don't even
know,
know what
who
submittals are.
invited you?
Yeah, yeah, like we don't get even regular submittals from these
Yeah.
kind of people,
Well, a
let
lot of times
alone.
that's the GC's fault because they're hungry and they got to win this job at all costs. So they're opening up their bid list to Joe Schmo residential guy. It's like he's got no business doing this job.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
And that happens. I mean, you will see even GCs that just don't have the
Yeah.
experience like that ML Bell has or anything, that don't have
Yeah.
the infrastructure, and it happens because there's not enough money from the owner's perspective. They just can't afford. See, they'll see
Well,
maybe
you're just trying to win the job.
yeah,
Most of the
exactly.
time. Like
And
I'll get errant numbers out of left field from guys like I didn't invite you, but my competitor did,
uh,
and they'll find out through the bid process. Like, oh, ML Bell's bidding, and I'm gonna send him my number, and
yeah,
it'll be 30% less than like the guy that I know and trust, the Josh Kreiders of the world. But
yeah,
like, I'm not carrying that number. That's suicide, man. Like,
yeah,
the guy doesn't even have a website, dude. Like,
Yahoo email address. That's a
yeah,
big
yeah.
one.
no, literally. Like the first, I'll Google him. It's like there's no website, there's no report of this guy in the Better Business Bureau.
yep.
I doubt you even have a contractor's license, let alone insurance and all. Like,
Mhm.
who are you?
Mhm.
You know?
Bonded and insured.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
it's like,
that?
well, it's written on your paper business card. That's great,
Yeah.
but
Spray paint on the van.
yeah,
Yeah.
anyone can go on custom ink and make that. It doesn't mean anything. So
There's real when somebody's price comes in super low. I just hope owners know that's a red flag. That usually
Mhm.
just I would guess. I don't, if it's way
on the
low.
smaller, less sophisticated stuff, they don't care,
Yeah.
and they're probably right to do so. It's like, hey, it's a low risk, easy finishes job. Who cares?
Yeah.
How bad
Yeah.
could it be? Sometimes that's the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if it's a tenant fit out in Riverfront Plaza in an occupied tower, like
Yeah.
you don't want to let Joe Schmo in there and touching your gear and your panels and affecting other tenants and you as the landlord. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to have just complaints out the wazoo. People calling you left and right. They cut my power off. They cut my water off. The sprinkler guy set off a head, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
like it's just a huge liability. So
Mhm.
I always, for one, I just try not to invite people that like I'll custom curate a bid list depending on the project.
Yeah.
Usually, it's like, these are the guys that are really good at small. Here's the medium. Here's my cascaders for large, industrial, whatever it might be. Like
Mhm.
it's not the same spammed invite on every job. It's custom tailored to people I know will be successful.
Changing gears just a little bit. Walk me through what it's like to get a revision.
Mm.
The engineers.
any just like a revision of architects, engineers, just that. What is that like from your side?
It's well, it depends.
Uh-huh.
It's fresh. Usually, it's owner dictated. Like, oh, they wanted to move the cabinets around or change the lighting or put a soffit or whatever it might be. Usually it's owner dictated. If it's like an ASK sketch, like a separate bulletin or what have you, usually they'll send you just that. So like, okay, I have this little single page doodle that has a whole nother set of information on it that's not reconciled with my base drawings that I won the job off of or that I'm bidding. And it's now up to me to go through to all my apparent low subs and make sure, like, hey, you saw all these bulletins, right? You're aware of the information. It becomes like a weird choose your own adventure to make sure, like, I have to work extra hard to make sure the low guy has covered all of these things. Otherwise, like, I'm on the hook for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little annoying, but it's a necessary evil if they're changing things just because, like, this will fit my program better. This will make my building work the way I want it to. Like, okay, yeah, of course, it's well within your rights to do that. You're the money man.
One thing Chris brought up is that sometimes he used to get a revision from an architect that would say like, all right, here's the revisions, but just so you know, next week we're going to issue something that also has this and this and this.
Yeah.
And then Chris was like, wait, so you're telling me that you want me to run down this changes and stuff?
Yeah.
And it seems like you've met your deadline to the client, but I'm going to be behind on my deadline because I'm
No.
going to expect more revisions that I'm going to. Why would I
Yeah.
even start the
Yeah.
pricing exercise now if I'm going to have to go again on it?
Something that really burns people out on larger scale projects, especially like big data center type stuff or higher ed, what have you.
Yeah.
A revision bulletin comes out and then, it might affect one or two disciplines, but the GC is not taking the time to go through and vet that. Like, okay, I combed through every page. I found all the clouded areas. It only affects my mill worker and my plumber. They're not doing that. They're just spamming a link out to all the subs on the job. Like, here, revision, you owe me a price within 7 days, or I take your silence as complicence. You accept
Mm-hmm.
all these things at cost. So, if you're just like a small cog on the job, like, I'm the painter, why do I need to dig through 50 pages of mechanical revision? Like, I'm exhausted. I'm
Yeah.
annoyed. I'm over this stuff. So it becomes a snowball effect on larger projects for sure.
Procore is a great software, but has that tendency where people will tell me I'm late on a submittal, and I'm like, which submittal did I consent to giving a deadline to? And it's
Yeah.
on Procore and went to my junk spam and all that. I got
Yeah.
1,000 emails, and Kurt at Urban Core, him and I have had it out. I swear I don't fight with everybody, but I do specifically will push back, because it's like I'm not okay with being told by a software that I have a deadline I never consented to. When did you call me and ask me, do you have the ability?
Well, he just input a
contract?
date and it auto notified you or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, it's late. I'm like, late to whom? Like when
to
did
the
I say?
rules that I changed.
Yeah. Well, it's industry standard, this and that. I'm like, well, if it's not in my contract that I didn't make a specific project, then there's literally nothing that I'm late on unless you call me, have a conversation, speak to me about what you need so that I can give you a deadline. And then
Yeah.
once that deadline's been given, then it's late. But so now Kurt just gives me shit. He's like, well, do you want me to send you your special text message to Kenny Schultz?
Yeah, that'd be lovely, actually.
Actually,
Thank you for offering.
Yes, I do want you to send me my text message, Kurt. I miss you sometimes.
No, Urban Core is great. When I was running my company, I did a lot of projects with them. Great dudes.
Yeah. We
because you had Ashley on here, right?
Yeah.
I don't know her personally. I don't think she was working for them back when I was running with them, but
yeah,
they're a great firm.
She's great too. We talked to Jarnell. His episode will be out next week, and he was specifically saying that she was really organized and detail oriented and all that.
Seemed to be.
But yeah, Procore is a great technology. I think we're better with it than without it. But I think it allows what you were describing of this kind of passive aggressive distribution of information to exist, and then people are held accountable for something that they've never really consented to, and that's the problematic part of it. You got to have that meeting with everybody before and say, does everybody consent to these rules that we're about to undergo during construction? And if not, then what do you need to do? But
well, something that ticks me off, like if you don't convey the rules of the game in the beginning, and then say like, didn't tell you this, small mom and pop company that I'm hiring to do the flooring, but we're using Textura on this job, and there's a fee to that. There's a cost associated with that. But like you didn't tell them up front, and you just like expect them to have read your mind or to eat that cost, and like it's not cool, man. Like just be transparent, be upfront about that kind of stuff.
What is it that you just said? Textura?
Textura.
What's that?
It's like an integrated billing software.
Oh, okay.
So most subs like it. If you're used to using it, it's great because once the pay app is approved and everything, it's just auto deposit into your account. It's all.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, you're not waiting in someone's lobby for a check. It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
but there's a cost to it. It ain't free.
So you mean like
each sub has to pay for it to access it on any particular project. The GC has to pay a fee.
Gotcha. That's similar to like us being told after we sign a contract that there's some sort of BIM expectation. We're like, wait, what? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's just included.
Like a pay when paid situation.
Oh God. Oh, I can't wait to talk about that.
Another whole episode
industry,
on just that.
Pay when paid. That is to me insane. The fact that we've normalized industry-wide pay when paid, that there's zero underwriting, like a contract, let's say for MVP services, $80,000 becomes a loan with no underwriting. And people say, well, I haven't been paid yet. And I'm like, yeah, but I've paid my employees. I've expended all of this cost. Nowhere in my contract have I consented to that. I know the AAA standard terms have built that into it, but and I know that that's how the industry operates, but no bank would ever give you a mortgage by agreeing to receiving payment whenever you get paid. Hey, whenever you happen to get paid, you go ahead and make that mortgage
you
payment.
get that promotion at work, you go ahead and pay the mortgage. It's okay.
Hell no. It's crazy to me. And AIA, shame on you, because that's not cool. We should totally not have that be a normalized industry thing. Well, and it's crazy to me.
Yeah, I love it. And you see this a lot more times in like larger scale industrial manufacturing, bigger entities like that, where like they have elongated payment terms. Like net 120, pal. Like, dude, by day 120, the job's gonna be almost done of what you're doing. Like, there's a tremendous cost that like that bid I sent you was prior to the knowledge of these were your payment terms. Like, guess what? Like, my employer now needs to go borrow that money just to have it on hand so we can pay people in a normal time frame. Like, there's added cost to that. We can do that, but just again, tell us the rules of the game from the beginning, because to not do that, it's disingenuous, and I don't need to work with you.
Yeah, and if you don't, for me, we just don't take contracts like that. If somebody wants to amend it and add that into our terms, we'd just say, nah, we'd rather not. That's just ridiculous. If you can't commit to paying me as a vendor, it sounds like you shouldn't be hiring vendors. It sounds like you don't have the ability from an underwriting perspective to take the risk on for that commitment,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't be making this higher in the first place.
Right.
That's how it should work. That's
Yeah.
how borrowing money really should work. You're borrowing money from a professional or a contractor by saying, hey, you front load all this work.
Yeah, we are your line of credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're buying it, you're
Yeah.
doing this, you're doing that, you're
Uh-huh.
your own employees, payroll every 2 weeks or whatever your payroll process is, and that has to go out the door on time. And so
Yeah.
the last thing, any
You think
vendor
you can just
should
tell your
wait for-
employees, like, just wait 120 days.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
I'll get you, bro.
Good
It's-
luck on
it's
having
fine.
employees with
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
And then nobody pays the people always like, oh, the late fees. Can you waive the late fees? I'm like, not really. That's annoying as
Yeah.
shit that you would just want me to do that after having paid late. So the work is done, takes 1 or 2 months, then an invoice hits, which by the way also has 30-day terms on it. So you get another month before you even have to pay,
Yeah.
and then you're late
Yeah.
by several months, and then you finally pay me. It's been a half a damn year. I finally get paid, and then you ask me to waive the fees. Are you fucking out of your mind? It's a few $100. At least have the decency to pay the fact that you got a
Yeah.
free loan from me. It's no bank, like I always go back to, no bank in their right mind would ever lend money under those terms. And
No.
it's crazy to me, this industry just normalized that.
Yeah.
That all of our subs are expected to do that. Architects just do that with their trades. I've tagged AIA a few times on it. I have a huge issue with it. I'm going to go ahead and try and make this a real AIA. Me, Kenny Schultz, founder of PermZip, has a problem with you and your standard contract and the fact that you're promoting ridiculous underwriting practices in this industry. It's nonsense. This is why I have conflict with people, because I have issues with the industry, and I feel like
Sure,
resolving it.
it's not a perfect mechanism.
Yeah, we can make it better, but everybody's just fine with just being like with these weird conditions that we've built,
No.
and they have to be changed.
Yeah, no, like if we submit a proposal on a certain project and then like, okay, we want to award it to you, and you're walking up to the altar to get married, and they're like, by the way, I have 18 dogs that are going to
Oh,
move in,
God.
that are going to
Yeah.
move in with me. Is that going to be a problem? And by 18 dogs, I mean like, oh, we have elongated payment terms, we have a indemnity clause, we have hold harmless language, we have all this stuff that we want to cram down your throats. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I don't need this project for that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm willing to walk away, man. Like, sorry.
Indemnity is a dangerous thing.
Yeah, and just like the fact that you waited until after I sent a proposal to you, like that's telling.
Mhm.
Yeah, that tells me all I need to know, because you knew this would be a problem.
Yes.
You weren't forthright about it.
Yeah, and it would change my price if you want me to indemnify
Exactly,
you.
exactly.
That's risk.
Yeah, it's like my number's gonna double.
Yeah.
buddy.
At least.
Oh,
Yeah,
same.
we see that a lot of times. Like you'll bid a job and like, oh well, gosh darn it, wouldn't you know it? The architect forgot to draw our phasing plan in there. We need you to do this in like 15 phases.
Yeah.
Do
No
three.
problem.
Yeah, do 3 rooms at a time. You're going to be committed to me for the next year and a half when you thought it was going to be like a 90-day job. Like, dude, that's a totally different price point for everybody. So,
Yeah. Phasing. Yeah.
yeah. It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Come on, you're being a bully. You're taking advantage of me. It's like, no, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
you're taking advantage of me. And like, I
Mhm.
respect the people I work with and the trade partners and the relationships that I have. Like, I want them to price it appropriately and to
Yeah.
understand what they're getting into. So we all have to be successful. We all have to make money at the end of the day.
Expectation management. It's tough, man.
Yeah.
Especially when somebody thinks it's phasing. What are you talking about? You're going to charge. It's going to be more money to phase?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's a
Like,
crazy.
yeah, dude.
Now we have 2 sets of permits for one. Like out the door. Now I have to draw 2 completely sets. That's 2 different things that I got to manage submittals for, or whatever, RFIs that are just 2 COs.
Yeah, when I thought I had 1, but now I have 8 different deliveries for all of my doors and storefront and light fixtures and HVAC and VAVs. Like everything's more expensive now.
That's crazy.
And
yeah.
you're crossing multiple lines of demarcation, multiple quarterly pricing increases, multiple months. Everything gets more expensive. Like what do you mean? What do I mean?
Yeah.
Like how are you so surprised by this? Like, what do you mean it should be the same cost? Like
Yeah.
not even close, bud.
You'd be like, yeah, sure, it will be. Just don't phase it.
Right.
That's the way to do
Yeah.
it. You talk about delivery. That's an interesting one. Delivery and coordination of that. You have to get materials on site.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? I mean, how difficult is it to get things on site on time and storing it? And
Well, Kenny, it depends.
yeah, I just don't even know about. I don't even think about
Well,
it.
like,
But that's crazy to think about.
Working in a downtown tower environment is very different from working in a single story office building in Innsbruck.
Yeah.
Very different, and there's cost implications there where, like, if I need to load everything on a freight elevator in Riverfront Plaza, guess what? You can't have 12-foot high storefront indoors. Like, it won't literally fit. It can't
Oh,
physically
shit.
fit. Or
So you gotta like take a window out of the building or something and crane it
sometimes,
in.
or like, hey, we want to put this like operable wall, this folding nano wall thing, which requires like structural steel to support it.
Yeah.
But I can't bring a 25-foot stick of W beam up there, and like it's got to come in small pieces, like 6-8 foot lengths, and small enough pieces that 2 men can carry it. Like there's logistical considerations that you as a designer probably never even think about. Right?
That's why I like to ask those questions, because we don't. And
Yeah.
it is obvious if you know it, but
it's obvious to me.
Yes, you're like, I can't believe that.
I watch this movie every day.
Yeah. So what other kind of things? I mean, that's crazy. Just the physical size of things, getting them inside. I remember Ben Adamson in a meeting one time was talking to Amrit about the height of the floor. He's like, why don't you make it 12 feet or whatever feet? Because then I can just buy these sticks, just set them up and go instead of cutting them. Like this is the standard
Like
dimension.
of conduit, you mean?
It was framing of some sort. They're talking about the height
Like
of the building.
metal studs.
Yeah, if somehow if they had adjusted the floor to floor height, then whatever structural thing that they needed to do came in a standard dimension that he could just order and turn up and get them going. And that was the moment I realized, oh wow, I didn't realize.
Oh yeah, like if you have a massive job, like my deck to deck height is 14 foot 2 inches.
Yeah,
like, you've got to buy 16-foot studs.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And you got to chop 1.5 feet off of each one of them.
Yeah,
you have a tremendous amount of waste. But like the contractor has to charge you for that. Like they bid the job with all 16-foot long metal, and you're paying for that, owner. You're paying for that to go in the dumpster.
Yeah, that's crazy to think of how much metal would be just thrown away from cutting that many pieces.
It happens all the time. It's so sinful. It's wasteful. But it's like that's the nature of the beast.
Yes, shoot, that's a whole nother conversation of people that are into sustainability, just like trying to standardize design decisions around the idea of less waste. Another architect we love working with is Jason Hopkins, Design Physics. He's like the architect that just building permit architect type dude, and that's why we like it.
Yeah,
he's just get the permit, focusing on ADA stuff, the egress. He can do design and all that, but he's just more get the permit, get it built.
No muss, no fuss.
Yeah.
Just get me in this space. Yeah.
And he's good with getting it too, which is very important in the sense that understanding things take time, if changes happen and all that, realistic expectations from the professionals. But yeah, so what were we talking about? Logistics. One thing Chris from Benny's told us it was crazy is trying to coordinate a crane.
Yeah.
That crane day. Is that insane? Is that just like legitimately impossible to
it depends.
Yeah. Crane day. Like, getting the equipment, the permit, you have to have permit for it as well. Like, how does that?
Yeah, you might need a street closure permit if you're in the city and all that. And yeah, just like, or trying to get trades to share a crane amongst themselves. Like if you have multiple picks for rooftop equipment and steel that's going in the building, like let's share resources. Like we don't need to just have 2 separate crane mobilizations and 2 separate lane closures and all that. Just it gets faster and cheaper. So
what does it look like trying to get everybody to play nice in the field together? All the different trades.
I mean, I don't spend a ton of time in the field. I'm a dweeb at a computer.
Yeah, I don't really actually. More of an ideas guy.
I leave that to the real man. I'm just good at talking about it.
Yeah,
but being about it. No, I mean it's again in the design build world, we oftentimes can handpick who we want to work with. And we pick smart firms with similar skill sets. That we know are suited for the job at hand. So it works well. I mean, like. Again, they all know each other. They run into each other on a lot of our projects. Like, oh yeah, hey, it's this electrician again. Our foremans are buddy. They're neighbors. It's a very small town, so it's not that hard. It's part of the job. It's like we all have to play nice. We all have a schedule. We all have a same sheet of music that we're working off of from the beginning. You know what your costs are. You know what your timelines are. Like you've got to fall in line and get the thing done according to this pre-programmed set of rules. And if one certain trade starts falling behind and affecting others, like we're going to come down like a hammer. It's like you got to catch up, or you'll be supplemented, or whatever it is. But
what do you see a perspective that is time critical? Like something that's always hard to coordinate sequentially. Like I can't do this until this person does this.
Yeah.
What do those look like in the active construction?
I mean, a very basic Fisher-Price kind of level. It's like, okay, you got to demo out the whole space.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you do first.
Yeah.
And then you're framing all your walls because, your duct guy needs to know, like, it's a lot harder. Like your electrician can't do anything until the walls are up, right? He's roughing in those walls. Same thing for the HVAC guy. He's got to know where the walls are, where the soffits are. Usually he's hiding runs and
Mhm.
sidewall grills within a soffit. You know, the drywall man kind of controls a lot of that destiny, and, you know, pushes the whole thing
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
And I don't say that just because I used to be a drywall man, you know,
Yeah,
slightly biased.
Shout out to drywall.
So drywall,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, I mean, just getting all your rough-ins done, you know, before you're putting any sort of skin finishes on anything, before you're hanging any sheetrock, putting any insulation up, any
Yeah.
board and batten material, whatever it might be. You know, all the finishes just coalesce behind that, and you know, it's just the higher end the project is, the more trades there are. Like, you know, if you have specialty acoustic wall panels, or you know,
Yeah.
Phil's felt, or you know, garden on the wall, jungle behind you, that kind, it just depends on the job of
Yeah.
how many different stakeholders there are. But
And you're in the middle of that herding cats and trying to keep
Yeah.
everybody, and it's primary responsibility, I would guess, of the GC to make sure things logistically are kind of aligned. And that
Yeah.
to me seems insanely
that all the
possible.
trains are running on time, that all the materials are arriving when they need to. And I mean, that starts day one, like with what I do. Like,
Yeah.
hey, on this job, like this tenant's demanding, like, I've got to be in this space 16 weeks from today, from bid day. Make
Mhm.
it happen. Okay, 16 weeks. Geez, you've got a bunch of light fixtures that take 20 weeks to get. You can't buy that stuff.
What
Or
happens
these
with-
doors are running 12 to 16 weeks. Like, you need to work with me and be willing to compromise on a few things and let me guide you to water. And like,
Yeah.
I'll get you there, but you got to be reasonable. So
I always wonder, where does it all go? Like, how do you figure out where to put all that shit?
I mean,
all those lights.
most trade partners have like a warehouse or, you know, their own laydown yards at their facilities.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a tight urban site, it's going to the trade partner, and they're delivering it just in time on the day that they need it.
So they load the truck up, like, we're going to put these lights up today.
Yeah, like that morning, like, all right, these 12 doors are coming today, you know, whatever it is.
I got you.
But, you know, if it's a sprawling suburban, you know, office park with a big parking lot or field, I mean, it's just much easier. You can, you know, look at connexes and lay down storage, secured storage, and you can store more stuff on site or maybe within the building itself. It just depends.
What do you think's a most underappreciated thing that the GC does?
I don't know. That's a loaded question. I would say kind of the theme I touched on from the beginning is like making your deal happen.
Yeah.
You know, not to sound like arrogant or anything, but like if I don't do a really good job with what I do, this deal's never going to see the light of day. Like, it doesn't matter what the architect drew and what the engineers contrived. It doesn't matter what the subs priced. Like, it's never going to come to fruition. Just the budget's busted. The pro forma doesn't work. This building requires too much financial investment to turn it into the new function that it needs to be. It's just never going to get there. So if you have a GC that's just asleep at the wheel or just not very good at what they do, not good at being nimble and proactive and analyzing things, like, it's just going to die. I think, like, budget's busted. I don't know. Redraw it. Let me know when it's drawn. I'll rebid it.
Yeah.
You know,
Do you ever,
it's like a crap in, crap out kind of arrangement.
when you're looking at those and you see their contingencies, do you ever like consult and say that's not realistic amount of risk to
yeah.
consider?
Oh yeah. Or I might tell them like, hey, I'm in a competitive budget environment. Like, I'm giving you a budget off of like a test fit and you're getting a comparable number to compare me to. I can't load it up with a bunch of contingencies and nice to have kind of money. Like, I can't, because you're not going to give me the deal. You know, you're going to give it to the other guy. But here's what I recommend you carry, you know, whether it's 5%, 7%, you know, if it's an elongated deal happening over the course of multiple quarters, you have like just general escalation, material escalation costs. Like, I'll kind of recommend to them, like, this is what I recommend you put on my number based on this data.
Escalation is crazy. That Chris brought that up, and I've never really thought about it, but that's just considering the price increase of materials and labor.
Yeah. Like, if you have like a long phased out job at like a private school, let's say, where like you can't just gut the whole building. There's children in here, right? Like, you can do a couple classrooms at a time and work your way through it. Like, that job, as the crow flies, if they were to just move out, you could probably blow it out in 10 weeks, but you can't. So it's going to take a year,
Yeah.
you know? So over the course of that year, there are multiple quarterly increases, supply houses, commodities, everything's always changing. You know, it's gotten a little more stabilized in recent years, you know, after during COVID, dude, no one would honor a quote for more than like 8 hours.
That's insane.
It was nuts. They're like, people would really literally write on their proposal, like, this quote is good until like noon tomorrow. Like,
Wow.
don't you dare call me and award this, because I got to reprice it. Like, especially commodities like copper and aluminum and, you know, wood. Just everything was so volatile.
Lumber went nuts. I remember.
Yeah.
A lot of deals ended up going complete sideways because
especially in the multifamily game.
Yeah.
You know,
all that sticks, all those sticks.
Damn sticks.
So we were talking about what was it? talking about what you do, what you solve, the deal, the pro forma. Always come back to that. Like the
Yeah.
GC seems to be closer to the developer at those early. So that I've always wondered, how does a developer make good decisions about the pro forma and the construction cost if they don't have anybody helping them understand what kind of risks they're presenting? And that seems to be one of the GC's critical consulting skills that they
I
can
would say
offer.
so.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, you don't get too far being a successful developer in this town if you don't have good, solid GCs that you know and trust and have executed projects with, and you have, frame of references for what things should cost on a per unit. This ground up multifamily bid has 200 units. It should cost me X dollars per door, and the site civil work should cost me Y dollars per acre. And
hmm
they have these metrics in place that they know what they're doing.
I wish engineers had something into their.
But I sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I will say, like, on the custom design build, adaptive reuse, change of use, like all that stuff goes out the window. Like, you don't know what this is worth. It's a custom curated thing. It's a
Yeah.
monster. Like, I just looked at a deal that we're really excited about. Hopefully it goes forward. The guy wants to take a 5,000 square foot just husk dead building and turn it into like a full blown commercial kitchen with a retail component, with a cafe restaurant component.
Nice.
Open it up to the street, have folding glass window, all this cool stuff. Like, wow, it'd be a really dynamic space. But like, nobody has like, oh, that costs X per square foot all day, baby. Like, nobody knows. I don't know. I have to like run it down and figure it out.
That's funny.
Unpack that puzzle.
Jarnell mentioned that exact same thing on the ghost kitchens that they were doing. It was during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a new idea then. A lot of people were doing it, but nobody knew how exactly to price it. There was never really, there was no historical data on how to put 16 kitchens all together in one spot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'd done restaurants, but like, what the heck is this
Well,
going to look
you
like?
did Hatch with us, right?
We did. Yeah. Yeah.
Same kind of thing. We have like multiple commercial cooking kitchens side by side that they lease out to different chefs and whatnot in town. But yeah, just like that's a unique beast. I don't know.
The idea is completely foreign or new,
Yeah.
and it's never been really seen before. So yeah, you have to lean on folks. And that's where, okay, this is another.
And oftentimes in the restaurateur subsect, particularly, like usually they're more artistic.
Yeah.
Like they're chefs, right? So like I'm very artistic. I have this creative menu. I have this process. They're not nuts and bolts construction people almost ever. So when you ask them, like usually it's up to me to kind of ask those probing questions and feel out their program. Like, what kind of cooking are you doing? Do you have deep fryers? Or do you have combi ovens and all this stuff and heat calcs, and you need the captive air hood? Or do you just have a panini grill? And like, that's a very different set of rules and regulations and ventilation requirements. So
Yeah.
almost never do they just come to me like, here's a full list of all my equipment. Here's all my checks and balances. Here's what I need. Price it. That never happens. It's just like, give me a kitchen. It's like, I got to figure that out,
Yeah, one thing I want to make a little talking head video for the restaurant industry about mechanicals to just say, make your hood 10 feet or less and it'll probably work. You go crazy, anything more than that, you're going to need specialized equipment. And unless you're willing to pay for the DOAS, it's just not going to work. Look at Chipotle. Look what they put out of that restaurant. It's a little 10-foot hood. They're cranking stuff out all day long. Simplify your business down to that. And if you can't, then at least it's going to cost you a lot of money in the HVAC. What is I'm curious, MEP, what roughly percentage ranges? It depends, but on the total construction cost type thing,
Well, it depends on the type of project, obviously. In the data center world, for instance, it's 80% or more.
Yeah.
Like you could have a $250 million data hall fit out. That's 180 of that is MEP.
Yeah.
But you could have a simple paint and carpet tenant fit out that MEP's 10%. It just depends on the type of use, the type of the job.
Yeah. That's wild. We can
in like the commercial industrial manufacturing, same kind of thing. It's usually like 75% or more. It's everything. Process piping, glycol chillers and all this crazy stuff. Like, that's the whole job.
on an office TI type stuff.
30-40%, close to half.
That's what we've heard. That's what we've heard a lot of that. And that's
good. I'm not completely wrong. That's good.
Well, we bring it up. We ask it because we're trying to make sure we're not crazy, because it's always the first thing to get value engineered. And if it represents such a huge cost, it makes sense why that's the first thing to go after. It's like, well, that's the biggest chunk, but it's also the first thing that gets complained about after the CO. And
Sure.
So we're trying to balance that line. Before we wrap up, you want to give us a way to contact y'all and find out more about MLBell and what y'all do?
Yeah, I mean, Rula, our business development lead, she does a great job. She's all over LinkedIn and social media and all that. But mlbell.com, we're out there. Restaurants, retail, commercial office, light industrial. We do a little bit of everything. We prefer design build where we can get in day one with you and really help your vision come to life and call, good, smart people that have your best interests at heart and just make it all come together. So, but if you have a design bid build job, we'll hunt for that too.
Yeah, definitely. Matt Savinsky, Mr. Richmond.
Mr. Richmond.
Shout out to Lighting Environments too. For
Yeah,
letting us
Lighting
use our office
Environments.
space.
We'll put y'all the website there.
Absolutely.
For these guys. This is an awesome space here. Maybe if we do another one, we'll shoot over there or something like
Yeah,
that.
just get a different angle.
Matt Savinsky from MLBell and other